There wasn't one thing that really helped propel things or make it take off. It was just a lot of little things that added up. For example, creating content consistently. For example, getting into video and just spending years doing videos before I started getting any traction. Blogging started because I couldn't afford to do paid ads to recruit customers. And the one thing I ended up learning throughout the whole process is if you just keep giving and you don't ask for anything, eventually you'll build your brand because you're helping people and you're putting them first. But you got to genuinely really give, really put people first and not ask for anything.
Hey guys, this episode is unreal. We interviewed Neil Patel, but he's one of the most successful SEO and marketing people on the internet. He goes deep into his history and the success that he had and the pivotal moments in his career and how he built it, all the different companies he's had, some great examples of how he's made his channels, his content, and his products stand out against the rest, and the secret strategies on doing this effectively. Join in, can't wait to share this episode with you. It's an amazing one. So Neil, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So really excited about this one. I think there's going to be a lot of learnings to share, especially because you have such a long history of growth in the digital marketing space, and you sort of even carved out a lot of the strategies that a lot of people do. So let's maybe go back to how you originally got started in digital marketing. I know you were kind of a little bit into the affiliate marketing, but I would love to know where your first few dollars came from with digital marketing.
Yeah, so do you want to know how I made my first few dollars from digital marketing, or more so how I got started? Two different for me.
Okay, let's do both. Let's do a quick how you got started and how you made your first $100.
So how I got started was I was looking for a job when I was 15 and a half, got onto this website called monster.com. Couldn't find a high paying job because they all required a college degree and I was only 15 and a half. I'm not a Elon Musk or a Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates where I'm that brilliantly smart. So I decided to just create my own job board because I couldn't find a job. So I created one, paid some people to help me out, popped it up, and then it was live and I was like, wait, no one's coming to it. And at that point, I realized you had to do something called marketing to get traffic to your website. Learned it, did okay in it. And that's how I got my start in digital marketing. And
Okay.
from there, the rest
And that
is
wasn't your first $100?
my first $100, sadly, wasn't from that business. That business generated $0. But my first $100 came from doing consulting for someone else. So when I was
Okay.
marketing for my own job site, I got decent at it. And I was taking nighttime college classes while I was in high school to try to see if I go to college, maybe I can graduate really fast. My first class was Speech 101, and I took that class when I was 16 years old at a local community college. Funny enough, in Southern California, in your neck of the woods. And one of the people in there was a sales rep that worked at this power supply manufacturer. Like, hey, we're looking like someone like you who can do our marketing. And they ended up hiring me. The first gig I got with them was roughly $1,500 for 10 hours worth of work. And
Wow.
then they ended up extending it to a $5,000 a month consulting gig.
That's an unbelievable first client. If if any of the other freelancers are listening right now, that's not too bad for your first client out of the gates.
And I was only
Uh,
16, so the money added up really fast, right?
oh yeah, I can imagine. What happened to the job board? Did you end up shutting it down?
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Didn't work out? All right, well, that kind of leads into my next point of, you really started so long ago and you've tried so many different things, but you've been able to keep that, personal brand going. So what do you think the main contributing factors to launching these multiple things, whether it's an agency, a SaaS product, or even all the sort of content that you produce and then use in your marketing? How have you kind of crafted a really good personal brand, and what do you think went into that?
I didn't try to craft a personal brand. It was pure accident. Blogging started because I couldn't afford to do paid ads to recruit customers. Speaking at conferences was because I was looking to generate customers. Creating videos and audio was all to generate more customers. If I had to go back in time, I wouldn't brand myself. I would have branded my company, but it was too late, and my personal brand came before my corporate brand. But that's what I would have done if I had to do it all over again. And the one thing I ended up learning throughout the whole process is if you just keep giving and you don't ask for anything, Eventually you'll build your brand because you're helping people and you're putting them first. But you got to genuinely really give, really put people first and not ask for anything. And that's a big mistake because most people will give for a little bit and then it's like, wait, where's the money? Where's the revenue? Or they'll give and they'll be like, yeah, what am I getting in exchange? And they're just not patient. And you just got to keep doing it because you love it. You genuinely want to help people. And that's how a personal brand is built. Never happens overnight. Anything that happens overnight typically can fall just as quickly as it popped up. It takes a long time, takes many years, and then, the rest is history.
Nice. And so how do you think you got so good at content marketing then? Is it just pure just producing so much of it? Would you position yourself as a content creator or more of a salesperson? Because a lot of that was around getting clients and getting customers for your agency.
More so, I'm not really a salesperson. I'm decent at selling, though. I got good at creating content because when you do it for 10 plus years, you get decent at it. Like when I created my first blog post, it was terrible. Terrible. Like you would look at it and you'd be like, what the heck was this? And I still have spelling issues and I still have grammar issues and my content's never perfect, but wait, people accept it and they're okay with it. And over time, if you just keep creating, eventually things work out.
What are some of the biggest wins you had in content creation? So for example, looking back on that last 10 years, what were some like big kind of like tipping moments where it just like skyrocketed and took off once you started doing that one thing?
It was actually nothing. There wasn't one thing that really helped propel things or make it take off. It was just a lot of little things that added up. For example, creating content consistently. For example, getting into video and just spending years doing videos before I started getting any traction. The biggest thing for me was consistency and just being persistent and not giving up.
How many videos do you think you created and put on YouTube and all the different social channels before you started seeing like some decent traction?
Yeah, if I had to guess with YouTube, maybe like 50, 60, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
I know things were really humming after we started creating like 150 to 200 videos, but the first 50 were brutal. It
Yeah.
didn't matter how good the content was or how terrible it was. I just couldn't get traction. It took a long
Yeah.
time to figure out how to make YouTube work.
And so how fast was your production on those? Were you doing like 5 a week or you just like 1 a week?
No, 3 a week. So I was releasing
3
3
a
videos
week.
a week, Monday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah, which is still similar to what I do today. It's still Monday, Thursday, Saturday. I do remember in between though, I did Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like at one point I was doing 7 days a week just cranking out content. And it
Yeah.
wasn't working out the way I wanted. And I was just getting pissed because I was just like, man, I'm putting all this effort in, paying all this money for editors and studio time and videographers.
Mhm.
Just wasn't getting traction. And it took a while, but eventually I figured it out.
And so in terms of that, you were saying it's pretty much consistency. And then was there anything else that you sort of, once you started doing it, you started seeing a bit more traction? Was it like descriptions, titles, YouTube SEO, that sort of stuff?
YouTube SEO, good attractive titles, picking topics that were searched a lot. Videos that were long enough, 2-3 minute videos didn't cut it. You had to go to 7 to 10 minute videos. Trying to promote the content more heavily, doing email blasts, push notification blasts, blogging and including my videos in my blog posts. Like I was literally trying to do whatever I could to make some of this stuff work.
So how would you rank YouTube as like importance of your traffic channels? You have number two, and then what's first? So search.
Yeah.
What about social media? That's such a time suck. What do you think about the Facebooks, the Instagrams, all those sorts of things?
It's my number 3. I'm not engaged as enough as I should be. What's funny enough, I was actually talking to one of my team members the other day. I was like, we need to hire someone who just not necessarily follows me around because I like my life being private, but is around me a lot and can help me crank out tons of social content because I want to be cranking out 3 pieces of content a day on social media.
So hiring a stalker, but not too stalkerish.
Pretty much.
Okay. And so what do you think about, are you going to dive into, all this new stuff that's coming out with TikTok and Clubhouse and all this other stuff? Because all of this adds up into so much time. Or are you like, no, content on YouTube and Google is where my bread and butter is?
Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. So I'll do all the main channels. I do need to do TikTok. Been slow to adapt there. I have been on Clubhouse for months. I was saying Clubhouse isn't worth it. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I know everything. I've been wrong many times, but the reason I don't think Clubhouse is worth it is because you have to be on Clubhouse to participate. What I mean by that is if I want to use Instagram, post something, I can post something and go drive and do some errands and come back and go back to Instagram and get engagement. Clubhouse, if
Mhm.
you're not on it, you don't get any engagement. You have to be
Yeah.
there listening and participating. And I just don't think that's realistic. It just
Yeah.
isn't. Like, what you expect people to spend 5 hours, a week, 10 hours a week just sitting in on Clubhouse and you can't do anything else? Like, it just doesn't work. I see Clubhouse as not a social network, but I see it as a feature within a social network. Why can't a group within Facebook use that quote unquote Clubhouse type of feature for people within the group to hold a session and everyone help each other out? Why can't people on LinkedIn who are learning about business or marketing or sales or any professional topic get together and help people out? I look at it as a feature within a social network, not really end all be all type of, social network that its own standalone product. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm off here, but that's at least my belief.
Yeah, well, it's a huge time suck, and I don't think it's really that sustainable. The only people that I've talked to that have made it work are the people who have like they use that as top of the funnel. They funnel everybody into something, some value offer, and then they have CRM
Yeah,
sales team that comes in after that. But
yeah, but even then, the funneling isn't that great. You're better off just doing ads on Facebook and Google, and you'll get way more leads, and it's scalable. You want to scale Clubhouse? What, you got to be there 10 hours a day? Not realistic. It's just easier to throw up ads.
yeah, I agree with you. My background's in ads too. So that's a good point, actually. Where does the paid aspect come in for your content creation? So you're creating a lot of blog posts, you're creating a lot of video content. What do you sort of allocate to paid advertising? Because I know like you're teaching a lot of organic strategies, and so
Yeah.
what's the paid side of your marketing?
I'll boost my content and I'll promote my content through methods like that, or I'll do paid webinars or drive people from paid to a webinar and try to educate. But we
Mm-hmm.
definitely do paid. I'm a big believer in it. I think it's just as good as organic. And if you can make the numbers work, you should do as much paid as possible. I know some people are like, you should organic's better than paid. I don't look at it as organic's better than paid or any other channel. I just look at it as like, if you can produce an ROI and you can scale it, go for it. If you can
Mm-hmm.
produce an ROI and it can't scale and it's going to be really tiny, it's a waste of time. If you can produce an ROI and scale it big enough where it's impactful for your business, but not as good as, let's say, paid advertising, you should still go for it if you're starting off. But those are the main two things I look at: ROI and scalability.
Yeah, because the one challenge I do see with people like, on the SaaS side with your SEO tools and then also on the agency side is that the delayed attribution of those ads is just really hard to figure out. So when you're looking at ROI, how kind of granular do you get on that, and how like strict do you get on tracking that ROI back to the ads?
Yeah, I'll do first touch and last touch. And as long as I can make it profitable in both, I'm good to go. Some people are
Okay.
like, "Oh, you really gotta look at last touch, you gotta look at first touch, or you gotta attribute a portion to it." It's just easier to know, hey, is it profitable on first touch? Okay, cool. Is it profitable on last touch? Okay, cool. And there's probably some extra bonus that I'm getting that's gonna be hard to attribute, but who cares? It's good enough because it's profitable, and then just keep scaling.
Okay, so diving into the agency side of things, your agency stands out as definitely one of the better ones. Why do you think yours stands out so much more than the others? What do you guys think you do differently in terms of your acquisition for getting awesome clients? Because I know you've worked with like Uber and all sorts of massive companies. So how do you think you differentiate?
So our big thing is we're a company built by marketers and not private equity or big publicly traded holding companies, they say, you got to operate at this margin. And I'm like, well, if I do what's best for the customer, even if it's not the best economically for me in the short run, in the long run, hopefully things work out. You can do a lot of that kind of stuff when you bootstrap it and you really care about your customers and your name, and the company is named after me. So I don't want to create a shit name, no offense, or sorry for cursing there. But that's a big component for me. And then the other thing is we genuinely care for our work and we try to push the boundaries. And when I push the boundaries is try new stuff, test, and see what happens. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way we want, and sometimes it does. And you learn from it and you keep adapting. And I think that's really helped us get customers. And it's helped us get a lot of awards. We've won quite a few awards. I think right now we're up for 5 drum awards. We'll find out in a week or two if we win any. But the goal is if you produce amazing work, people start recognizing it. It just takes time.
So, freelancing and starting agencies is definitely one of the easiest ways to get into digital marketing. What would you give some advice to, people who are just starting out with that, and then maybe similar to you coming out of college, can't necessarily get a job, maybe have a skill set like, maybe SEO, running ads, content creation, whatever it may be. What's some advice that you would give those people if they were starting out their own sort of agency/freelancing gig?
It would be first practice on your own stuff and get decent at it. And then once you do, just hit up a lot of people on Crunchbase who recently got funded and say, hey, here's what I found wrong with your website. Hit up one of the founders and the investors and be like, this is all the stuff you can do to fix it. And a portion will ignore you. A portion will be like, oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Let's work together and I'll hire you.
Nice. Is that where you guys do a lot of your outreach through like Crunchbase and those funding platforms?
Yeah, it's super effective.
Nice. And you're doing cold outreach. That's really the main way that you're doing that.
That's the main way we're reaching out is cold outreach. And then of course we get inbound as well, and then word of mouth and stuff like that. But we use most of the channels to try to drum up business. But cold outreach is super effective. Just people don't want to put in the time and energy into it.
Yeah, I think it's also really hard to get right. Having the right messaging, hitting up the right person at the right moment, and then making it humanized. I think too many people try to automate it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Any big mistakes that you made along the way with building up your agency, or even just on the content side, for what you see with your clients? Any massive mistakes that you've made on that agency side, and then on the content side?
The big mistake I made on the agency side early on is not focusing enough on account management. It doesn't matter how good results you provide. If you have terrible account management, customers will churn and they'll feel that the experience is not as great. And I learned at that point, client communication is really important. It's not just about the results. The marketing, side of me was like, who cares? Just drive people results. That's all that matters. And then I quickly learned that no, that really isn't it. People value relationships. They value communication. And what's funny is if you don't produce as good results, but you have amazing communication, you'll actually retain customers for longer. And we learned that by talking to a few other companies and or agencies more so, and looking at their numbers, because some of the founders were gladly willing to share, their LTV of a customer and stuff and their average results per client. We're like, what the heck? So, but that doesn't mean you should produce less results. It just means that you should do as best as you can with providing results, but also have amazing communication. So that was a big lesson. The second big lesson that I learned was reporting is extremely important. And if you can't tie things back to a dollar or ROI, it doesn't matter. Eventually, people will just go away. And even if you know you're giving them a ROI, if the reporting doesn't clearly show it, you're still going to end up losing customers.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting how you have to do so many things right that aren't revolving around the actual results of the work you're doing. But no, that's really interesting that you did a comparison with other agencies, actually. I haven't really heard of too many people doing that, but that's a really good way of benchmarking.
Yeah, because I
If you
just
can
know
find.
so many agency owners, right? So I was able to get data and stats, and I was also able to provide them like, hey, here's roughly what we're experiencing. So it wasn't just one-sided. Of course, we weren't revealing like who our customers were or anything like that, but we were each, telling each other like, here's how we keep clients longer, because the space is massive. It's easier to work together with other people than it is to compete.
Yeah. No, totally agree. And there's plenty of business to share. So the competition usually ends up making a company better.
Yep.
Um, that's great. And then what about the marketing side, digital marketing side, when maybe the mistakes that you're seeing your clients make before they come on board, or other digital marketers who are just doing the complete wrong thing? What do you think some of the biggest mistakes in people are making in digital marketing?
Some of the big mistakes that we're seeing, are you talking about people as in providing the service or companies doing the work?
The companies, so that say you're advertising or doing SEO for Uber, what are the biggest mistakes Uber are making in the content?
Yeah, the big mistake that we're seeing people make is they write based on what they want versus what their customer wants. And you'll be shocked at how many times that happens, because people do brainstorms internally and they're like, oh, we should write about this, or we should create this social content, or this would be really cool. And you should have those brainstorms, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what they're doing is they're taking the opinions of their staff and the people that work at the company, which is fine, but they neglect to take and the opinions of their ideal customers or existing customers to figure out, what do they really care about? What would appeal to them? And I think that's a very important part of marketing that a lot of digital marketers take for granted, that funny enough, a lot of offline marketers, have in there. Like, they're looking at personas, they're looking at, hey, who's our ideal customer? What do they want? How can we appeal to them? But we see more offline marketers looking at things like personas than we do in the digital world.
Interesting. And how are you helping brands collect that sort of information from email lists and customers and that sort of thing?
A lot of surveying, a lot of research, a lot of calling of customers and interviewing them, and all that kind of stuff really helps us figure out who their ideal customer is and going after them. Because let's use a really generic example. M&Ms. It could be anyone who wants to eat candy. But
Mm-hmm.
who are the majority of the people who are eating M&Ms? Is it actually children? What are the ages? How often do they buy them? Another prime example of this is KitchenAid. We didn't end up working with KitchenAid. We lost that pitch. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was going through the KitchenAid pitch, and their whole thing was they were talking about all these appliances. Okay. And I was
Mm-hmm.
doing market research, and I learned a few things with market research. Back in the day, when a lot of these appliance manufacturers were out there, it was actually the male who ended up working in the relationship and the female was at home cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Times have changed. Nowadays, you can get the woman working, and in many cases, she can make more money than the male, right? You have a lot of women who are super successful, like the Sheryl Sandbergs of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you also throw away stereotypes, who says that the woman can only be the one who can cook? It could also be a male. And you also have couples these days that are male male or female female, right? There's no limitations anymore. So that was one interesting thing that we saw. But most of these appliance makers, their persona was, oh, someone's at home cooking all the time. That's not the
Yeah.
case anymore. Real estate, rent, etc. is very expensive. So you have both people typically working. And then
Mm.
when you looked at how much time they spend cooking, it's actually a much lower time frame that they spend into cooking than they did back in the day. So that was
Mm-hmm.
another interesting point of view. The other thing that we ended up learning was people have longer commutes these days to and from work that they used to, and many of them are living in cities. And what we
Mm-hmm.
learned from that was kitchen sizes are actually smaller now than they used to be. So people don't have as much room to have all these appliances. And we
Yeah.
had a lot of proof points that, in essence, to cut the story short, we had a lot of elements that showed people spend less time cooking. They want healthier food. They don't want tons of appliances. They just
Mm-hmm.
want one thing that can help them whip up the food as quick and as easy as possible. And they have less counter space to do this. And it could be the male or the female cooking. And who says it has to be one or the other? So our pitch to KitchenAid was, hey, you want to sell all these appliances and you want to appeal to people who have big kitchens and stuff. I'm like, but this is not where the market's going. They say by
Mm.
2050, more than half the world's population will be living in major cities. Now, that stat and data was pre-COVID, so I don't know what's going to happen post-COVID.
Delayed
Like,
a
if
little bit.
for a few years, because things may change from that. But the point that I'm trying to make is, my belief based on the data on where the market's going was very different than what their strategy and their overall goal was with the KitchenAid brand.
Okay, so yeah, really coming down to understanding the customer more, surveying them, quizzing them, talking to them.
And
That's
that's
the
probably
biggest
also
mistake.
why I lost the pitch.
You were too real.
Well, I was just trying to be fully transparent on where the market's going and where I felt they needed to be as a brand to end up succeeding in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always what the big companies want to hear, though, is it? It doesn't fit into their agenda.
No, and being quite frank, I could be wrong as well. This was my research. This is what we
Mm,
learned from interviewing, but it doesn't mean that I'm right either. They could prove me wrong. I've been wrong many times in my life. Probably I've been wrong more than I've been right. But with
mm.
marketing, I've been right more than I've been wrong, at least.
So you stick to that.
Yeah.
It brings up a really good point, actually. So, what importance do you put on doing the keyword research around content and looking at the data and the trends versus listening to your customers and just collecting feedback from them on what sort of content you want to produce? What's the balance there?
Sure. So I'm going to actually give an interesting stat for you first before we end up breaking that down because I published a blog post
Mm,
late last night or this morning, and the blog post was actually on keywords. So I
mm,
did an analysis on blog posts that drive over 1,000 visitors or more from SEO traffic. And the data I found is they target 76 keywords on average. And what was interesting when I did that research is blog posts that rank for 1,000 keywords or get 1,000 visits or more, even though they're targeting 76, they tend to rank for around 38 keywords on average. Posts with 50 or posts with 5,000 visits or more per month from Google SEO traffic organic tend to be ranking for 51 or more keywords. The
mhm,
point I'm trying to make about this is keyword research is really important, whether you like it or not, whether it's for a hashtag or whether it's trying to be found on YouTube or social sites. You got to end up doing keyword research. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to people, but
mhm,
what we're seeing in content is two different things. One is the content that people are searching for are more beginner based type of content. How to install a toilet, how to tie a tie, how to get Google to index my website. The content that's being shared on the social web is more advanced, right? Users don't care to share this basic content, nor do they care to link to it. So you got to write the advanced content for users so they'll share it, link to it, increase your overall authority. But you also got to have to create content for people who are searching. And when we look at content creation, we spend 40% of our time creating content that people will end up searching for EX, how to tie a tie, and the 10% of the time of advanced content like blog posts that generate 1,000 visits or more per month target 76 keywords. A lot of data, a lot of stats, makes us look like an expert. We'll get more social shares, more backlinks, but that post really isn't targeting a specific keyword. But that's roughly our split: 40% of the time writing basic content,
mhm,
10% writing advanced content. In the basic content, that means a lot of keyword research. The advanced content, not as much. That's more talking to people. And I know I
mhm,
flip the pie of 100%. So people may be wondering what the remaining 50% is. 20% goes to rewriting old content. You'll find that
okay.
old content that isn't continually updated doesn't do as well. Social
Mhm,
sites, Google, they all have their prime picking, so you need to keep updating your content. And then
mhm.
the last one is the remaining 30% is actually marketing the content that people tend to forget about when it comes to content creation.
Okay, so what do you mean by marketing content?
If you tweeted out an article from my buddy Eric, I'll hit you up being like, "Hey, Jack, I know you end up sharing this content by Eric on this topic. I have a similar one that just came out. Feel free and tweet it if you like it. P.S. If I can ever, or cheers, Neil. P.S. If I can ever share anything for you, let me know. Or I see who links to maybe Eric's site or Moz's site or anyone else, and I'll hit them up, try to get them to link to me. But those are all examples of promotion. Or if I link out to your website, maybe I just email you saying, "Hey, I linked out to you. Feel free and check out my post if you like it. Share it. Tell people about it."
Okay, got it. Okay, so that's like the collaboration side of it. You got your creation of your own content and your collaboration.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. No, that's really good. And then that's obviously for text searches. What do you think? Like, there's been so much buzz around like voice search
No,
and all
same
that sort
thing.
of stuff.
For voice, so voice, according to ComScore, 50+% of the searches at the end of last year, 2020, so we're now in 2021, was voice search. And according to OC&C, voice commerce is a multi-billion-dollar market every single year. It's going to ramp up to, I think they said either 30 or 50 million pretty soon. 30 to 50 billion, not million. So billion with the B. But it's the same concept. What are people searching? A lot of it's basic stuff. So the same way you do keyword research for text-based is the same way that you do it for voice search. The same way that you would also do it for social media hashtags to see what's popular and trending.
Okay. And does the research change at all when you're optimizing content to voice versus written?
No.
Okay, interesting. Because I suppose it's still going through the search engines, but then what about the metadata that Facebook is pulling in to read results sometimes? Have you looked into any of that sort of rankings, any of those ranking factors? Like when you ask Google a question, then it answers out with a voice in return?
Yeah, so we've looked at everything from schema markup, because you have to remember, for voice data, they're pulling from text-based websites. They're not just actually coming up with its own. It's like, think of you asking Siri a question or Amazon Alexa a question, and Alexa or Google Home going and pulling from a search engine, right? That's text-based and repeating the answer. So they're using a lot of things like machine learning to figure out what you really meant, to what result you're looking for. And a lot of that is similar to how you're searching on Google. Their patterns are actually very similar. So what we found is your metadata is really important. Answering questions in short sentences, concise, is very important versus having paragraphs. Similar to text. No one wants to go to a blog post, and if you Google what is 2 plus 2, Google answers it. But generally, if you went to a blog post, you wouldn't want to read a paragraph that just tells you the answers for. You would just want to know the answers for. That's what I mean by user experience and getting to the point without the fluff. So things like that. I mentioned metadata, schema markup. We've noticed that if your site loads faster, they're more likely to pull from you when it comes to voice search as well. But they're all going to have their own algorithms. Funny enough, they're buying a lot of data from the SEO tools and the search providers out there.
Interesting.
We've been hit up by a lot of it, like Alexa and all those kind of things, being like, hey, can you tell us trending data and all this kind of stuff?
Wow. I'm surprised they don't have enough data just by listening into people's Alexa devices.
It's not enough data. It's what are the answers? What do they need to prepare for? So they want trending data, and they want to spot the trends before they happen so they can adjust on their end.
Wow. A whole nother business model behind that one. But one
It's kind of
thing
creepy. I don't know any data, because I'm like, wait, what are you going to do with this? And one, people's data is not my data. I'm not going to just go, whether someone gives me access to it and they say, Neil, you can sell it or not, just ethically, I don't feel comfortable selling it. And I'm just like, I'm not a data business. Your data is yours. It's not mine to do with. And, big companies want it. They can figure out their own ways to gather it.
Yeah. I think that's a better stance for a company to take anyway. Keeps you out of trouble, unlike some of these other bigger companies that are getting attacked for this at the moment. But oh, sorry, you were gonna say?
Yeah, what's hilarious is years and years ago, because I used to have some analytics companies, and years ago, we used to get hit up by government agencies looking for data. Long time ago. And what was funny is we had a really good law firm, and in the law firm was a ex-deputy director of the FTC.
Okay.
And they were telling me that with government agencies, and I'm making this up because I'm not going to go into specifics, but they were just giving me an example, like if the CIA or NSA requests data from you and they want to buy it and you sell it to them, it doesn't mean that you can't get in trouble from the government for selling the data that you should have never sold to them. I'm like,
it's a little
okay.
trick.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so why even sell it, or even why are these people hitting us up? But like, it's funny how they work. And that's what I learned from the lawyer years and years ago. And this was a lawyer that was getting paid $1,200 an hour. So you would assume that they know what they're talking about. Maybe I'm wrong there. But...
No, well, it's almost a little trick to catch some people out, see how willing they are to sell out their customer data.
No, but you don't get in trouble from the person buying the data from you. You get in trouble with the government.
By the next department.
Yeah, but let's say like the FBI buys data from you. I'm making this up. You can get
Mhm.
in trouble from the US government for selling people's data, even though the FBI bought it from you. And I don't know
Yeah,
how true that is now, but that was what the lawyer was explaining to me years ago. He was just like, "Ah, you can open up a can of worms and get sued for this." And I'm like,
yeah.
all right,
It'll be an
easier.
interesting court case when they were like, okay, so who'd you sell the data to? You were like, oh yeah, the
Yeah,
FBI.
and I don't know exactly how you get in trouble or who it's from, whether it's the jury or the public that gets mad at you. Honestly, I'm not a lawyer, but I thought it was an
Mm,
interesting anecdote. And the point I was trying to make from that is just don't sell data. Don't be in the business of
yeah.
selling data. Even if you can make a lot of money, I just maybe I'm a little bit biased, but as a marketer, I believe the data should belong to the people, not to companies.
Yeah, we have a similar thing. So we have a giveaway and software product that we made, and yeah, we get hit up all the time about buying all the email lists that all the emails that go through our software. And I know there's definitely some competitors in the space that do sell it, but yeah, it's just not worth the risk. I don't think it's going to bite you in the ass one day.
Yep.
Um, so, wrapping up a few of these last questions here, one debate I always have with people on this show is, the trade-offs between owning and renting your customer base. Owning being email lists, stuff that you can transfer, versus the benefits of renting from social networks and that sort of thing. What's your take on owning versus renting audiences, pros and cons?
I just try to own. I never try to rent. So I don't look at
Mm,
social networks and being like, "Hey, let's rent." I'm assuming by rent you're talking about ads,
followers.
followers. Yeah. So I don't like. I once spent an arm and a leg over 100 grand getting to over 1 million followers on Facebook. Facebook changed our
Mm,
algorithm. My followers barely see my content, no matter if they want to see it or not. Now I can do a better job of creating higher quality content so a bigger percentage sees it. But if I want all of them to see it, I got to spend money with Facebook. So what I
mm,
realized from that is there's nothing wrong with ads. There's nothing wrong with building up your followers and quote unquote renting, but the majority of your money should be spent on your own stuff, your own blog traffic, your own lists, your own push notification lists, even your own phone numbers. When you look at these messenger bots like Facebook and all of them, I'm like, cool. So when are you going to start charging to actually for me to communicate with people who wanted to follow me in the first place?
yeah.
And that's what I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to spend the money on owning, and I'd rather be smaller and own than be in their control and then have them make some change that really screws me over. And when I look at that, I'm not mad at Facebook. I'm not mad at any of these platforms or Google. They should do what's in their best interest. They're a business.
Mm,
As consumers and business owners, if we don't like it, don't use it. I know that's blunt and kind of rude, but it's the truth. I hear
mhm.
businesses all the time complaining about Facebook or Google items. I'm like, well, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have as much business. So accept it. If you don't like it, block Google from your site. Stop posting
Yeah,
on
it wouldn't
Facebook.
be free.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be paying for Facebook or you'd be paying for Gmail.
Yep.
Um, okay, interesting. And then, so what about those people who are, early adopters onto these social platforms and they literally build businesses around having a big Instagram following, having a big TikTok following, or whatever it may be? Say you were just getting started out today, would you start building your social following to kind of try and blow up by being first mover advantage on some of these platforms, or would you just try build that email list?
I would build an email list, but I'm going to be in the opposite camp as most people. I think social is really good if you're going to be in the consumer space, but generally, whether you're B2B or B2C, email list converts and drives a ton of money. Social does not drive anywhere near the amount of money as we see email driving for almost all our customers. Like if I just look at
Mhm.
the pure data and I look at social, unless you're talking about social ads. Social ads, we of course see beating email because you can scale it up quicker, but a lot of email lists is built from ads. But we rarely, I would never say never, but we rarely ever see building up your organic social followers ever be the revenue that email drives by far. Like you're talking about multiples.
Mm. Okay. And then what about SMS? Are you getting more into that? I know Messenger got big for a little bit, and right now we're seeing a bunch of our clients wanting to do a bunch of SMS. What's your take on Messenger and then SMS?
Yeah, I think Messenger is big, and same with SMS. And when you're saying Messenger, you're talking about Facebook Messenger, correct?
Facebook, WhatsApp, all the different types of messaging apps.
So most people, when they think messaging, like you mentioned, they think Facebook ecosystem. Instagram, you can do messaging through Instagram now. Most people don't know that. Companies like Mobile Monkey tie into them. Then you also have Facebook, WhatsApp. Technically, it's all the same company. But when I look at that, I think it's powerful. But what I know is going to happen is Facebook's going to eventually make you charge, or they're going to charge you to reach out to your own followers and use their messaging capabilities, which kind of sucks. But yeah, they're a business. They got to do what they want to do. I'm a bigger believer in collecting phone numbers so you can just message directly and not be beholden to them. Now, granted, a lot of the phone numbers you end up collecting are WhatsApp, going through WhatsApp, so it'll somewhat cost you either way.
Yeah. So there's email and phone that's been around forever. Do you think there's ever going to be a next kind of like channel agnostic contact information touch point?
I can't think of anything that's blowing up anytime soon. I bet you email and phone, SMS I include in phone are going to be the main two channels for a very, very long time.
Okay.
The
So you
other
heard it,
channel
guys.
that's blowing up is a lot of the old traditional channels. We're seeing mail, like direct mail, being more effective than it used to be. We're seeing television ads being super effective as well. But they're not necessarily the same type of communication channels as email and phone are by any means. But we're seeing other existing channels like snail mail, which is similar to email, but the old traditional version, convert extremely well because people don't do it as much as they used to. But it is ramping up in a large way.
Yeah, interesting. And so when you say TV, is that traditional TV or is that like digital TV? So you're going through like the Hulus and that sort of stuff.
Both. We bundle them in all together
Oh wow, interesting.
because even though it's digital, it's still the similar type of content. It's the same audience that's watching them.
Mm.
Like we see from survey data, we see a lot of people watching Netflix and YouTube TV and Hulu, just like they would watch quote unquote traditional TV. It's more on demand. You watch it when you want, but you can still have commercials there and advertise.
Okay, interesting. And then next question is final takeaway. What are three things content creators should focus on out of all the different shiny objects out there? Three things that they should focus on.
One, producing high quality content. What I mean high quality, figure out how to integrate audio, video, carousels, text-based content, just super high quality, because there's over 1 billion blogs. There's so many billions of social profiles. You'll drown in content. You're not going to stand out by just creating content. It used to be that case years ago, but now it's more so if it's not quality, you're not going to do well. The second thing that they need to focus on is updating old content. Content creators just are in this mindset of keep creating. We spend 20% of our time updating old content, and not just for blog posts. If we saw that something did really well in a video on YouTube, like digital marketing trends of 2020, we'll do a digital marketing trends of 2021 when the year's over. That's an example of recreating and republishing or re-updating. And that continually drives traffic and awareness. And then the third thing that you need to do as a creator is, if you want consistency, you need to build up your own list, your own push notification list, your own email list, your own SMS list, your own messenger bot list, even though eventually you have to pay to blast out. But you need to build up your own list so you can control your own destiny as well. And that way you can spread the awareness of your content.
Okay. Yeah, no, great three takeaways. Definitely everybody listening, start focusing on those three things. Now, big fan of your and Eric's marketing school. I know you've done like 1,800 episodes or something ridiculous now. What's the value of podcasting? I know that's super hard to track revenue back from this, but there's so many other benefits to it. What's your take on podcasting?
Well, I look at podcasting as it's just more brand awareness. It's fun to do. There's barely any podcasts out there compared to blogging, and it's in its infancy. You wait like 3-4 years and you'll blow up. In China, podcasting is extremely popular. In the US, it hasn't really taken off yet. Places like India hasn't taken off yet. But you give it 4 or 5 years, it'll take off.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, amazing insights. Love all the knowledge that you've dropped, all the help that you've given as well. Now, this is, where can people find you? Where do you want to direct people to? Talking about your products, brands, agency, where should we go find more about Neil?
I blog at neilpatel.com. My agency is NP Digital, or Neil Patel Digital for long. And that's where you can
Trying
find
to
me.
pivot into that personal brand.
Yeah, I'm trying to get away. I'm like NP Digital. So we removed the Neil Patel Digital and just made it NP Digital. And then Uber Suggest is my SEO tool.
Nice. Highly recommend Uber Suggest. I use it a lot and it's amazing. So thanks for
Just
putting
wait
that
till the end of
together.
the year. We'll automate most of SEO. JavaScript on your website.
Wow.
You don't even have to do the changes.
Damn, definitely looking forward to that. And then actually, just quickly about that, Uber Suggest, you actually ended up purchasing that company, didn't you?
Yeah, I wasn't the founder. I purchased it for 120 grand in 2017.
Wow, that's taken a long way. The improvements have been insane because I was using Uber Suggest before you bought it, actually.
Yeah, and we
And
just
then the
hired the
improvement.
CEO, the head
Mm,
of marketing automation for Dentsu Aegis, the big ad agency.
yeah, yeah.
His name is Max. He was the chief automation officer there. His job was to automate as much of
What a
marketing
role.
needing people, because they have like, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe 100,000 employees doing marketing.
Yeah.
And the goal is to automate as much as possible. So we don't need humans to do your SEO, but you can automate it. I think that's where the future is going. You're still going to have humans to do a lot of the creative side, but like, why do you even have to fix a broken link anymore? Why can't it be done through software? Like, there's just so much.
Yeah.
Why do you have to tell people, hey, switch up these title tags? Why isn't the tool just testing a million different title tags for you to figure out what's going to get you the most traffic, so that way you don't have to do anything?
Yeah, there is a lot of repetitive tasks in SEO in comparison to like some of the other channels, like ads and all that sort of stuff, which have figured out a lot of the automation.
Yep.
So yeah, super interested to see that come to SEO. But Neil, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I know you're short on time, so we're very, very lucky to get an hour of it. So thank you so much for the time and really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, we put a bunch of effort into this to make this content awesome for you guys so you can get a lot of value from it. If you can, hit subscribe, like, and comment.